Our relationship to knowledge is changing. Our relationship to expertise is changing. How we view, perceive, and receive our place of value in the world is changing. And as Hemingway said, this will happen gradually, then all at once. And my fear is that we're not quite understanding the literacy required because we're pretty close to that all at once time and place and space right now.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Hello, welcome back, my unexpected audience. It's great to have you back listening to the podcast. Today, we're going to delve even deeper into this thing that I think many of you have heard of, and that is artificial intelligence, generative AI, deep learning, machine learning. These are words that I've come to be able to say, but I would say I still don't quite understand them all. Fortunately, today, we're going to learn more about them. Please welcome Brandon Donnelly. Brandon, thank you for joining.
Thank you. I thought you were going to introduce the puppet, which his name's Henry, because he's the real wizard. I'm just, I can't even say I'm the looks, I'm afraid. So, no, it's very exciting
to be here.
Welcome
to Henry, too. You may surprise us all with some ventriloquism as well. I suspect that's going to happen. We'll see.
I think we call that lag in the stream, but that's all right.
So, Brandon, can you start off just by giving an introduction to yourself, some of your background, and the work you do today, so everybody gets a sense of what your work is and how you got there?
I mean, I'd love to figure that out as well, so this will be great. I mean, I consider myself what I say is a professional dabbler. So I do everything from being the AI entrepreneur in residence at Schwarzman Scholars, which is at Tsinghua University, to building AI solutions for large enterprise customers, all the way to patenting random things like household spraying cleaners that have been used in many of your homes. You just don't realize it. But that's me.
Yeah.
ADHD in flight.
That's brilliant, because I obviously have looked at your LinkedIn profile and I've seen this work around sprayer technology, which is so interesting because I'm sure there's a natural link between that and building enterprise architecture in AI. I just don't know what it is. Can you elaborate further on how you went from sprayer technology to enterprise architecture for large organizations?
Yeah, I mean, it is all about solving puzzles, right? So when we look at a lot of these technologies and the way that software works when it comes to generative design and being able to create things, you're just taking kind of an engineering approach of deconstructing a problem into its base components and parts, understanding how to get to an end result and the rules and limitations in order to solve it. So be it with AI or be it with what I refer to as the pet rock of my existence, right? The humble sprayer, you're able to solve the problem either which way and then understand the mechanisms of distribution, either in the physical real world or in digital world. And that's all just logistics and supply chain.
I love it. Love it. So I think we have some of that connectivity for sure. Brandon, as you know, the title of this podcast is As Unexpected. And as I say every time on the podcast, I really believe that all of us can show up very well when things go just as we planned them. The tests really come when things go as unplanned. And one of the great parts of this podcast is our guests share stories from their own professional and personal lives when things didn't go expected. Whether that means that the outcomes were better or worse than they'd hoped, but the lessons learned from that experience when there were right turns, left turns, U-turns. We went uphill, downhill. It just wasn't the route that we had planned. Would you please share with our audience some of your experiences in this realm of dealing with the unexpected?
Sure. I mean, I can take, I think, my largest failure and serve it up first, right? Which was, if we look at sprayers, a large part of it was born out of the pandemic, right? And this is where I had everything really figured out. I was burnt out after traveling every 2 to 3 days to a new country in the medical device land, pretending like I knew what I was talking about. This is a repeat theme, right? Fake it until you make it. And then decided to open up a company to do consulting in medtech right in January of 2020. Right. Now, there was a small thing that had happened during that time, and I had really pushed myself in a couple of different areas of, okay, I'm going to create a video game studio. I'm going to work on medical device design. And, I wanted to really focus on my passions and interests and have the ability to do so. And 2 days before I was going to renew a very large contract with a medical device company that would have completely changed the trajectory of my life, there was a halt on all new business because you had all of the surgeries almost on a global level that were non-critical or life-sustaining that got paused. And you go through the emotions of, wait, what does that mean? Right? As a fledgling company, you have to figure out the people that you hire. What do you do with them? Right? How do you take care of them? They place their trust in you and they have hopes and dreams and things of that nature. And so I said, okay, well, let's keep the conversation and dialogue alive. Let's try to move forward as best we can. But heck, we need to pivot. We need to see what we can do. There was this thing called the PPP, where they're like, don't worry, the government's got you. And they said, you need to have your 2019 tax returns for your company. Oh, wait, I started January 2020. So again, I was too late to be able to do that. So we didn't have any aid. And I had a friend, and he goes, Brandon, we have a problem, which is, as I said, this is my pet rock solution, right? Because the complexity of it was not too great. We can't get enough disinfectant and cleaning material out during the pandemic, and we can't physically get the products to assemble the cleaning agents, the sprayers, the bottles, and things of that nature. And one of the really cool things is I had a lot of friends actually out of China from, again, the medical device days. And
sure, yeah,
I had conversations with them, and I'm like, okay, guys, like, you make millions and millions of products, and what do I do? Right. And so it was a jump into fluid dynamics. It was trying to understand cycle times and materials and how does a sprayer work? So a little reverse engineering, right? And with a pair of calipers and with a set of friends, we were able to come up with some designs, lots of 3D printing, right? Which was that iterative design process, which is this concept that I think really fits as unexpected. Something breaks and then you make a new one and you fail upwards into a final design. And we did that back and forth with these partners, and they were great because they weren't charging anything. I paid my employees during this whole time, which, when you're seeing your bank account start to go in an unexpected direction, That's
Right.
extremely stressful. And we reached a breakthrough, right? And these guys were able to expedite the mold production. We tuned the cycle time. We got the cost down, right? We came up with, I think, it's like between 10 to 12 patents on some of this. So we got those filed. It was just, hey, we need a solution first. And then we started to get into crazy quantities of how do we get 7 million in? How do we get 12 million units in? Right? And it sounds really impressive, but it's not. Because you're talking about fractions of pennies or pennies that, like, that's your margin. And I'm like, okay,
Right. Right.
production
Yeah.
done. We've got this, sorted out. Uh, then we had to get it on cargo containers. Okay, they're on the boat, right? I should say shipped, sorry. But then we need to get them down to Tijuana because there's a maquiladora and we need to help with assembly, and then we need to go on logistics, and okay, we have everything set. Cool. Um, then it got held up in customs, right? Because they'd had to get decontaminated and they had to give it time, and the ports were backed up, right?
These are containers, just so I'm clear, these are
Yeah.
containers of spray nozzles, right?
Of these components, right? So
Of the components.
you had to get them from China to Mexico and then clear the customs, get the tariffs and the import export taken care of, and then from there get them to Chicago. So these things they've traveled the world, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember there was 7 million of them, and our partner just said they were supposed to be here a week ago, right? And if there's anything that talks about the value of relationships, one, it's expectation management during that time when nothing was going right. And the second component of it was driving down, right, to the factory in Tijuana, talking to some of the people there, having, ironically enough, tacos. I remember very vividly in my head in a mall out somewhere where I have no idea. I'm getting driven in somebody's truck, and we're meeting with this duty agent who's trying to figure it out and assess it. And we're saying these are priority. Of course, everything he was told is a priority, but these are components that will save lives.
Yeah.
And then as they were getting both railed and put on trucks, flying from Los Angeles, where I had driven down to Tijuana from, immediately as the trucks are going to Chicago to have these meetings in order to try to make sure that we're getting them in, we're getting the factory set up so that the new design can actually have a high-speed throughput, and trying to even understand that whole world. So I failed spectacularly many times. I was supported by incredible people more often than I care to admit. And somehow we made it work. Probably lost 5 years of my life in the process. Right? Because you have that
I
blind,
don't
oh,
know. You've aged well.
the, it's, the hairstylist is what, he worked wonders, but no, what it was is this component of you have to have trust in the people that you're working with. They have to have trust in you. There has to be that tolerance and expectation for failure, and to go into things, right? One with maybe a little bit of, oh, I can do this, right? Naivete. But the second component of it that is so critical is just being able to solve problems iteratively, not freaking out, right? And that's what we did. And at the time, I can say it all very calmly and coolly now. Yes, it all went according to plan, and we were able to, solve and handle these critical needs. But at the time, you're putting in the hours, right? And people see that when, you're taking care of your team, when you're making sure that people are paid. And when you yourself are putting in 20 hours or 2 or 3 nights, right, sitting on the factory floor trying to make sure that everything's running, right, that makes all the difference in the world. And I think speaks to the passion, care, and effort that you're willing to expend yourself rather than to just complain or to throw your hands up and say it's not possible.
One thing that comes to mind through that whole story is we often, I think it's human nature, to judge a decision based on the outcome and not on the quality of the decision process. And what I am taking for what you're saying is actually embedded in the quality of the decision process was a inherent and consistent value of the people involved. The outcome could have been very different just because of bad luck. There were so many things and continue to be so many things we don't have any control over, that the outcome could have been much different, right? The fact is the quality of the decision process by putting people first really comes to surface in your story. This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesteratSea.org.
I think with good cause, right? We are in control of nothing in our lives. We can only try to think that we are and to work through as many variables to enhance predictability. And I think data science shows us that, right? I always say it's the fidget spinner phenomena, right? There's no idea that a ball bearing in a little toy can take off and then disappear within such a short amount of time, right? There are these moments that something bad can happen, right? And we have to be able to accept it, to understand it, to digest it, and not just take the hits ourselves, but to absorb it across our network. And that's people, right? People are the ones that make us, they break us, and they help define who we are. And this is why you have sayings that it's your behavior and who you are like the 5 people that you're around the most. And it's true.
Yeah. That's so true. And this, to me, presents a terrific segue into the work you do now, where from our conversations, people are still at the center of it, even when juxtaposed with the fact that you're working in the complex ones and zeros, rapid fire evolution of artificial intelligence and Gen AI. So my next question to you is, where are people? Where do you see people fitting in this world of AI?
This is a beautifully complex question. And this is to say that we have to fundamentally shift the way that we're thinking about who we are in the world and what creative value is. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when I go in, be it University of Oxford or ASB, whichever university it is, on the one hand, I'm this curiosity that they want to learn about. On the other hand, I'm the harbinger of death because it means that, I can effectively replace them. And this is the scary thing, but also the beautiful thing with AI. And that is that unlike any time in history before, we now are having a abundance of knowledge, a surplus of it, right? And if we think about the definition of civilization, the formation of society, it is usually because we have had a excess of material wealth. And now we have an excess of, some would argue, whether or not it's there yet, but intellectual wealth. And how are we going to handle that? Right? There's, I think, a really fascinating paradigm of the Oxford professor that has 12 years of, teaching and being a world-class individual that knows about how marketing is done. And they can tell you the theory, the practical application, right? The rigor and the relevance, they're world-renowned. And then the name that we came up with was Chaz, who just rolled up, installed, an LLM open source, or didn't even do that, went on, to use ChatGPT and was generating things faster, better, and at a speed where there was a greater degree of value. And so the conversation strayed into this interesting philosophical territory that the professor has developed a muscle memory of doing it the wrong way, or maybe not the wrong way, the irrelevant way, whereas the person that just picked up ChatGPT, our good friend Chaz, right, is now at a advantage over somebody who learned the right way, the best way. We see this in CAD design before things like AutoCAD, right, where they used to have draftsmen that did these beautiful engineering works to take an engineer's vision and to put it into these 2D perspectives so that molds could be produced and things could be created. And the second that computer assisted design came out, they went away overnight. Well, if we look at this now, this is art, right? Where this is a very contentious topic. The second one is medical care. If we take a look even within what we call retrieval augmented generation, we can create a digital human, a copy with 5 seconds of audio and a picture, and we can replicate a professor. We can upload a syllabus, which, depending on the university and the professor, maybe hasn't been updated in the last 2 decades. And now the student, I have to give, a pedagogy jab there if I can. But as a byproduct of that, the student can now have one-on-one interactive learning sessions. The system can be updated to have that conversation to understand the individual needs of the learner. And then our relationship to knowledge is changing. Our relationship to expertise is changing. How we view, perceive, and receive our place of, value in the world is changing. And oftentimes, when we have things like getting, if you want to be a medical doctor, right? Well, that's a high cost center for reimbursement. And if I can make an AI that costs 1/100th of what you're charging, well, now I'm going to go after the highest cost centers. So do I get a university degree? I don't know. Do I focus on becoming, somebody that's trying to make the most amount of money on something that's highly intellectual work or highly technical work? I don't know. So this is going to have an impact on society. And as Hemingway said, this will happen gradually, then all at once. And my fear is that we're not quite understanding the literacy required because we're pretty close to that all at once time and place and space right now.
There's that was terrific. Thank you, Brandon. And I think this is just a good point to share a quote with you, because there's so much in the narrative that you're describing, whether humans are paying attention or not, whether we're aware of where creative value can be or not, what roles, positions, activities will be involved in or not. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read you this quote. It's about storytelling. It's about mores or community conventions. But I think it is a great place to bring this podcast to near the end. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because it really relates to so much of what you're saying. It's from a book that I've read a few times. I really see the importance of storytelling as core to human nature. It's The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr. Why Stories Make Us Human and How to Tell Them Better. So the quote goes like this. Research suggests that when we're transported, our beliefs, attitudes, and intentions are vulnerable to being altered in accordance with the mores of the story, and that these alterations can stick. The transformation that narrative transportation achieves is persuasion of the story receiver. So I just think that, as we think about the narrative around artificial intelligence, but also as AI participates in our communities, it's not just human communities, but it's AI as a participant. How do we think about the mores and the values and the conventions that guide those communities? How are those transformed? It's a pretty deep question, but I know you're ready for it.
I don't know. Maybe we have Henry, right?
Bring Henry back.
That's it. It is a fascinating topic because we are our stories, and our stories are not just about us, but it's about the cast of characters that we have on the stage with us. And those can be our friends, those can be our enemies, and those can be our challenges. And one of the things that is beautiful with AI is that we now are being forced to ask ourselves, what is it that we hold dear? What is it that really matters? And what are the components that are so critical in our lives that drive us to be who we are and why we get up in the morning? And so the unexpected, see what I did there, component of AI is that it forces us to question what it is to be human, what it is to be a community, and what it is to be ourselves. It's something that amplifies the identity of who we are because it forces us to challenge what we are. And these are the things that really, I think, excite me, is that depending on how this goes, until our AI overlords take over, so maybe we have another 6 months. I'll keep saying that every 6 months and eventually I'll be right, like Nostradamus. It is the fact that we have a beautiful opportunity that we can really think about how we can connect and lead with empathy. We can lead with community, and we can continually grow and evolve together in a society, especially perpetuated by social media as of late, that isolates us, that ranks us, judges us, and impacts us in these other profound ways that can be very socially isolating. And these are the things that I think really excite me the most.
That's a beautiful way to end. Amplify our humanity. Make sure we all have a calipers and a team, right? Going back to your previous story, and make sure we're understanding creative value, and that is at the core of what it is to be human. The creative value that we bring to ourselves and to our communities, to those around us. This has been really intriguing. I think our audience will eat this up, Brandon. I really appreciate your time and your collegiality and partnership. Keep it up. You're appreciated very much.
Hey, likewise appreciated. And, we're in for a fun ride. And as long as we're going through this together, right, then it'll be a very safe and exciting roller coaster. That is to say that it's a fun, thrilling ride that we're going together. We're feeling that rush of adrenaline, and we get to an exit that was an experience that dazzled and delighted us along the way. So Scott, appreciate it. And thank you again so much.
Thank you to you, Brandon, and Henry for being with me today.
Hey, there we go. Just for you, we'll do the sock puppet wave. And this is how I always say that I've done this too much, is when I know how to articulate the thumb and the finger in order to do the waving, But again, thank you again.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, Be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.